Hello there, people of the internet. My name is Oduo Jegero, and this is Political Headache, and this is Fat Facts only. So when we say fat facts, it is only fat facts. Today, I want to talk about something that has been going on in America. Gachagua has been in America for about, let's say, a month. And we have seen the things that he's been doing in America, and a lot of people are wondering what the hell is going on. So things are starting to come out. What is really going on in America? On June 24th, 2024, something happened that I think everybody in Kenya should have been proud about. President Biden designated Kenya as a major non-NATO ally. That is MNNA, for those keeping score at home. And it was a big deal, making Kenya the first sub-Saharan Africa country to get this status. I think it was about the champagne, the diplomatic handshakes, and probably a very nice dinner at State House. Fast forward just over a year, and guess what? The US Congress is already having second thoughts. Senator James Risch has proposed a review of Kenya's shiny new status because apparently Kenya has been making some friends that Washington doesn't particularly like. That is very, very interesting.
Just last month, President Ruto declared that Kenya a major non-NATO ally and China are co-architects of a new world order. That's not just alignment to China, it's allegiance. I submit for the record the text of that speech. I'm going to enter it in the record at the conclusion of the hearing that describes this. Relying on leaders who embrace Beijing so openly is an error. It's time to reassess our relationship with Kenya and others who forge tight bonds with China. And it isn't just an embracement of China, but also the, quote, new world order, end quote.
I talked with somebody and they was telling me that for America to like you, you must do the things that they want. And for America to like you, you must be a friend. You must not be a friend of somebody they do not like. We are talking about China, Russia, and Iran, basically. The geopolitical equivalence of your parents finding out you've been hanging out with the kids they specifically told you to avoid. That is what is happening. So, today we are exploring how Kenya went from diplomatic darling to potential problem child in record time, and what it tells us about trying to navigate a multipolar world when the superpowers want you to pick sides. That's what we want to talk about today. Let's start with the basics, because major non-NATO ally sounds impressive, but what does it actually mean? Now, think of it as a VIP membership to the US Defense Club, but without the commitment ceremony, okay? The perks are pretty sweet. You get access to advanced military tech that other countries can only dream about. You can host US weapons stockpiles on your territory. Your companies can bid on US defense contracts, and you can get priority access to all sorts of military goodies. It's like having a membership to Muthaiga Club, okay, but for tanks and missile defense systems. There is currently a pretty exclusive club of 19 countries with this status. Places like Australia, Japan, Israel, Egypt, Kenya. Joining this list was huge because it represented not just recognition of past cooperation, but a statement about America's strategic priorities in Africa. But here is the crucial fine print that everyone seems to forget. MNNA status doesn't mean the US will come running if you get attacked. It's not like NATO's Article 5, where an attack on one is an attack on all. Instead, it is more like we really, really like you, and here are some good weapons to prove it, but you're still on your own if things get messy. This distinction is important because it means Kenya gets the military benefits without US getting locked into any defense commitments. It's pretty clever arrangement for Washington. All the influence, none of the obligation to potentially fight someone else's wars. Kenya didn't just stumble into this status. The relationship between Kenya and the US goes back 6 decades, that is 60 years, but it's really solidified after Al-Qaeda bombed the US embassy in Nairobi in 1998. That attack was a game changer. Suddenly, Kenya wasn't just a nice place for American diplomats to work, it was ground zero for counter-terrorism efforts in East Africa. Since then, Kenya has been what Washington calls an anchor state in the region. They have been fighting Al-Shabaab in Somalia, contributing to peacekeeping missions around the world, and even leading the international mission in Haiti. Yes, that Haiti where Kenyan police officers are trying to restore order while gangs run wild. From the US perspective, Kenya has been an ideal partner. Let's put that on the wayside. Willing to do the heavy lifting on the regional security, competent enough to handle complex operations, and strategically located in a part of the world where America needs friends. The MNNA designation was essentially Washington saying, you have been great, here is your gold star. But while Kenya was building this beautiful relationship with America, it was also making some other friends. And I mean really, really good friends. Let's start with China. Because this is where the math gets really uncomfortable for Washington. Kenya owes China about 5.4 billion. That is 21 times more than it owes the United States. China is Kenya's largest bilateral lender, and that debt is tied to some massive infrastructure projects under China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Relying on leaders who embrace Beijing so openly is an error. It's time to reassess our relationship with Kenya and others who forge tight bonds with China. And it isn't just an embracement of China, but also the, quote, new world order, end quote.
We are talking about the Standard Gauge Railway, which cost 3.6 billion USD and is currently running a deficit of about 2 billion. There is the Nairobi Expressway, the Eldoret Special Economic Zone, and the whole bunch of other projects that look great on paper but haven't exactly been cash cows for this country. Okay? But it's not just about money, it's about military ties too. Over 1,000 Kenyan officers have participated in Chinese military training programs since 2012. They are cooperating on counter-terrorism, disaster response, and maritime security. There is even talk about joint anti-piracy drills. Now, for Kenya's perspective, this makes perfect sense. Why would you want to diversify your partnerships? China is offering money for infrastructure, training for your military, and asking for every little in return except maybe some diplomatic support at the UN. But from Washington's perspective, this looks like their best friend is getting a little too cozy with their bigger rival. You understand? So China's situation would probably be manageable on its own, but then there's Russia and Iran. With Russia, the relationship is more about economic and diplomacy than military cooperation, at least publicly. Bilateral trade hit about 300 million USD in 2021, and there is a cooperation on education, energy, and technical staff. Kenya hasn't exactly been cheering for Russia's war in Ukraine, but it also has been as vocal in its condemnation as Washington would like. Okay? Iran, you remember they were bombed the other day by Washington. Iran is where things really get spicy from an American perspective. Former Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi visited Nairobi in July 2023, the first such visit in over a decade. They signed 5 agreements covering everything from veterinary medicine to fisheries. Kenya is actively trying to expand tea exports to Iran and looking at other agricultural opportunities. In fact, I should be calling it Iran because the Americans are the ones calling it Iran. Now, I know you are thinking, it's just tea. But when you are dealing with a country that is under heavy U.S. sanctions and is considered a state sponsor of terrorism by Washington, even tea sales start to look politically problematic. The timing is particularly awkward because all of this relationship building with the U.S. adversaries has been happening with Kenya that have been happening while Kenya was receiving and enjoying its new MNNA benefits. Now, this brings us to Senator James Risch proposed review, which is basically Congress saying, hold up. We need to have a conversation about this relationship. The review is incredibly detailed and frankly a bit invasive. They want to know about every military and security relationship Kenya has had with China, Russia, and Iran since June 24th, 2024, literally the day Kenya got its MNNA status. They want details of political and financial links, trade relationships, participation in the Belt and Road Initiative. They're also asking some pretty uncomfortable questions about human rights, specifically whether Kenya has used U.S. security assistance to engage in abductions, torture, renditions, and violence against civilians. This isn't just diplomatic curiosity. There are real concerns that the U.S. has. So what is at stake here? For Kenya, losing MNNA status would be a significant blow. They'd lose access to advanced military technology, their companies would lose bidding opportunities on the U.S. defense contract, and they would lose the prestige that comes with being in such an exclusive club. But more importantly, it will signal to the world that the United States view Kenya as unreliable, which could affect other relationships and partnerships. When you're trying to position yourself, I think as a regional leader and global security provider, credibility matters. For the United States, this review is about more. This review is about more than just Kenya. It's about setting expectation for other partners about what MNNA status really means and what kind of behavior is compatible with it. If Kenya can maintain deep ties with China, Russia, and Iran, and enjoying MNNA benefits, what is to stop other allies from doing the same? There is also the broader question of whether the U.S. is being realistic about the choices facing African countries. Kenya needs infrastructure, yes, trade partners, and development assistance. If the U.S. isn't offering competitive alternatives to Chinese financing or Iranian trade opportunities, it is fair to expect Kenya to turn them down out of loyalty. And that is the truth. So where does this leave us? Kenya basically has three options. Option one, dial back relationship with China, Russia, and Iran to keep Washington happy. This would probably save the MNNA status, but would limit Kenya's economic and strategic options. Option two, double down on the multi-alignment strategy and risk losing MNNA benefits. This would preserve Kenya's strategic autonomy, but could damage its most important security partnership. Option three, try to thread the needle by being more transparent with Washington about its other relationship while working to address U.S. concerns about governance and human rights. For me, realistically, option three is probably the most likely, but it's also the most difficult to execute. If it requires Kenya to be more strategic about which relations it prioritizes and more effective at managing the optics of the foreign policy. People of the internet, this was facts brought to you by Political Headache, and I hope that you can leave your comment and tell me what you think. Until another episode, bye for now.